Hello, my name is Kathy Jameson, the Proposition Lady, and I'm here to help you understand the state propositions on your 2024 California election ballot. Today I'm going to talk about Proposition 33, the Prohibit State Limitations on Local Rent Control Initiative. If passed, Prop 33 will repeal the Costa Hawkins Rental Housing Act, allowing cities and counties to limit rent on any housing and limit the rent for first-time tenants. And it will add language to state law to prohibit the state from limiting the right of local governments to maintain, enact, or expand rent control. A no vote keeps the Costa Hawkins Act in place. Costa Hawkins prohibits cities and counties from enacting rent control laws in their local communities. Rent control laws can be written to affect new or existing tenants. New tenants can be impacted by a policy called vacancy control. This prevents property owners from raising the rent to market rates when an existing tenant moves out. Existing tenants can be impacted by rent control, which limits the rate of increase when renewing a lease. Sponsors of Prop 33 want to expand rent controls across the state and allow local governments to make their own decisions. If this all sounds familiar, that's because we voted on this issue in 2018 and 2020. Both efforts to repeal Costa Hawkins failed, with about 60% of voters opposed. It's important to understand that if Prop 33 passes, it does not automatically enact a rent control policy in California. It merely opens the door for local governments to enact those policies if they choose to. But is rent control a good idea? It's complicated. You can spend hours reading the pros and cons of rent control policy without coming to a definitive conclusion. Those who support rent control do so because it is extremely beneficial to tenants. Rent control allows people to stay in their homes long term, even if market values in their neighborhood increase beyond their means. These policies enhance a tenant's overall sense of security and well-being. If you want to protect the security and well-being of tenants, you may want to vote yes on Prop 33 to allow local governments to enact rent control policy. Costa Hawkins disallows rent control on single-family homes and condos. Prop 33 allows rent control on these smaller units, which affects the income of small landlords as well as wealthy developers. If you're afraid that Prop 33 will have a negative impact on small mom-and-pop landlords, you may want to vote no on Prop 33. Rent control policies can have a positive effect on California's homeless crisis because fewer tenants get priced out of their homes and left with nowhere else to go. If you believe rent control improves the homeless crisis by preventing evictions, you'll want to vote yes on Prop 33. That said, many people oppose rent control because it disincentivizes the development of new housing. It's expensive to build housing, and the only reason to do it is to make money. If developers don't see a path to long-term profitability, they don't develop. If you believe rent control will exacerbate California's homeless crisis by limiting the supply of housing, you may want to vote no on Prop 33. Let's turn to the current state of rent control in California. Some California cities have rent control policies that predated Costa Hawkins, and some have enacted rent control on older units excluded under the terms of the law. Costa Hawkins limits the ability of local governments to do much beyond that, but it does not prevent rent control from being enacted at the state level. In 2019, the California legislature passed the Tenant Protection Act, which limits annual rent increases to 5% plus the local inflation rate, with a 10% overall cap. These protections help tenants avoid dramatic rent increases. In an attempt to encourage development, the Tenant Protection Act excludes housing built in the last 15 years. The Tenant Protection Act allows vacancy decontrol, so landlords can charge market rates when a unit is vacated. Once again, this encourages development. But vacancy decontrol can incentivize landlords to harass and evict low-income tenants. The Tenant Protection Act has provisions for eviction protection to counter that effect, but there is no oversight body to enforce the rules. Tenants are free to file a lawsuit if they feel their rights have been violated, but this is not a remedy low-income residents can afford. Like Costa Hawkins, the Tenant Protection Act does not apply to single-family homes, condominiums, or duplexes where the owner lives in one of the units. If you think the Tenant Protection Act is a moderate policy that protects tenants and small landlords while encouraging development, you might want to vote no on 33 to prevent local governments from enacting stricter rent control laws. But if you don't think the Tenant Protection Act goes far enough, you might want to vote yes. Costa Hawkins was passed in 1995 as a way for California to limit the power of local governments to enact rent control. When state governments limit the authority of local governments, this is called preemption. Preemption is a legal doctrine whereby a higher level of government eliminates the power of local governments. If you think small governments are best positioned to decide which policies benefit their own local communities, you may want to vote yes on Prop 33. The Legislative Analyst's Office predicts that if Prop 33 passes, the state budget could lose tens of millions of dollars per year, since landlords who make less of a profit will pay less taxes. But it's impossible to know for sure, since we don't know what local rent control laws might be passed if it goes into effect. Prop 33 was put on the ballot by the AIDS Healthcare Foundation, or AHF. The AHF sponsored the efforts to repeal Costa Hawkins in 2018 and 2020, and they are the main funders of Prop 33, contributing the majority of the almost $20 million raised in support by the beginning of August. Almost $68 million has been raised in opposition to Prop 33, with most of the money coming from the California Association of Realtors, the California Apartment Association, and the National Association of Realtors. Landlords really don't like rent control. There's a lot of money flowing into Prop 33, so you can expect to be flooded with ads in the weeks ahead. Try and stay strong. Don't let well-crafted emotional advertisements influence your vote. Because when it comes to rent control policy, there are no easy answers. I'm Kathy Jameson, the Proposition Lady, and I appreciate you being here with me today. See you soon, California voters. Bye now!